Deep in the Taklamakan Desert of northwestern China lies a forbidden zone called the Sea of Death. Summer surface temperatures here exceed 70 degrees Celsius. Sandstorms can swallow everything in their path. Yet over 2,000 years ago, a thriving city stood in this wasteland, the most important crossroads on the Silk Road. It was called Loulan. It once connected east and west, linking the Chinese Empire to the Roman Empire. And then it vanished. An entire city, over 14,000 people, erased from the face of the earth. For 1,600 years, no one knew where it was. March 28, 1900. Swedish explorer Sven Hedin leads a small team struggling through the Taklamakan Desert. Their destination is the mysterious Lapnur, a lake that was vanishing. Suddenly, Hedin discovers a serious problem: the expedition's only iron shovel is missing. In the desert, a shovel means survival, for digging water, setting camp, clearing sand. Hedin immediately orders his local guide, Ordek, to go back and find it. Ordek walks alone into the desert. A violent sandstorm strikes without warning. Ordek is trapped in a wall of flying sand, unable to see direction or find his way back. When the storm finally dies down and he opens his eyes, what he sees leaves him speechless. Between the dunes, ancient wooden beams, mud walls, and carvings jut from the sand. A city buried for 1,000 years has just unveiled itself before him. Ordek stumbles back to camp and tells Hedin he did not find the shovel, but he found something 10,000 times more precious: a lost ancient city. Hedin immediately leads his team to the site. When he sees those ruins, he realizes he is standing in the legendary Silk Road kingdom that vanished 1,600 years ago, Loulan. Over 2,000 years ago, Loulan was the most dazzling jewel on the Silk Road. Massive rammed earth walls enclosed a city roughly 330 meters on each side. A tributary of the Yazi River flowed through the center, dividing the city in two. To the north stood a 10-meter octagonal Buddhist stupa, the spiritual heart of the city. To the south lay dense residential quarters and government offices. Beyond the walls, the vast waters of Lapnur Lake stretched to the horizon. Over 14,000 people lived here, where Chinese silk, Persian metalwork, Indian ivory, and Roman glassware all converged. Loulan sat at the junction of the northern and southern Silk Road routes. Every caravan traveling between east and west had to pass through the city. Loulan was more than a trading post, it was a melting pot of civilizations. The writings found here are astonishing: wooden slips and silk documents covered in Kharosthi, an ancient Indian script. Alongside them, countless Chinese documents recorded taxes, legal proceedings, and daily transactions. Buddhist scriptures traveled east through here into China. Persian artistic styles merged with Chinese aesthetics in this city. Cowrie shells from the Indian Ocean, ivory from Southeast Asia, all prove that Loulan had built trade networks spanning thousands of kilometers. This was globalization 2,000 years ago, and Loulan was its center. April 1, 1980. Chinese archaeologist Mu Shunning leads a team excavating the Taiban Cemetery near Loulan. As they carefully brush away sand that has covered this grave for thousands of years, a breathtaking face emerges. It is a woman, her long hair braided, wearing leather and wool clothing, still dressed in leather boots. Her features are clearly visible: high cheekbones, a high-bridged nose, golden hair. She looks as though she fell asleep yesterday. But carbon-14 dating tells the archaeologists an astonishing truth: she has been sleeping here for 3,800 years. She is not Chinese, not local, she came from the distant west. She is called the Loulan Beauty, one of the best-preserved ancient mummies in the world. She was about 40 when she died, standing 152 centimeters tall. Her lungs were filled with sand, dust, and charcoal, suggesting she died from years of inhaling desert dust. Ironically, the very desert that killed her preserved her body perfectly through its dry air and salty soil. Not intentional mummification, but nature's own masterwork. In 2007, genetic testing by Jilin University and Fudan University confirmed her ancestors came from Europe, likely traveling through Siberia to reach this distant eastern land. 3,800 years ago, someone crossed the entire Asian continent from Europe to the depths of China's desert. Loulan's prosperity was built on a fragile foundation: water. Lopnur was once a vast inland sea, covering over 50,000 square kilometers at its peak. The Darim and Konki rivers poured life-giving water into it endlessly. But as Silk Road trade flourished, farmers upstream began building massive irrigation systems, cultivating more and more land. What they did not know was that every drop they diverted meant Lopnur downstream died a little more. In 2017, a study published in Nature confirmed Loulan's demise was not a natural disaster, it was man-made. The earliest large-scale ecological catastrophe in human history, comparable to the modern Aral Sea crisis. Around 270 CE, historical documents begin to record Loulan's desperate cries for help. River water was diminishing, soldiers' grain rations were cut, wells began running dry. This was not a sudden catastrophe, but a slow suffocation. Year after year, Lopnur shrank. Year after year, sand dunes crept closer to the city walls. Irrigation canals dried up, farmland turned barren, pastures became salt flats. People began to leave. First a few families, then entire neighborhoods. By the 4th century, the city of Loulan, once home to over 14,000 people, stood empty. Doors left open, belongings scattered on the ground. When they left, they thought they would come back. Hayden excavated Loulan twice, in 1900 and 1901. From the sand, he pulled hundreds of documents, Kharosthi and Chinese texts written on wooden slips, paper, and silk. These words had traveled across 1,700 years to speak to the modern world about daily life in Loulan: merchants' trade contracts, officials' tax records, residents' legal disputes, soldiers' requests for grain. He also found wushu coins, silk fragments, bronze mirrors, and a wooden wheel from a horse-drawn cart. Hayden called Loulan the Pompeii of the desert. Just as Pompeii was sealed by volcanic ash, Loulan was perfectly preserved by the desert. In the northeastern corner of the Loulan ruins, a 10-meter octagonal Buddhist stupa still stands alone in the desert. It is a witness to Buddhism's transmission from India eastward into China. At Loulan, archaeologists discovered the Dharmapada, a Buddhist scripture written in Kharosthi, one of the earliest physical evidence of Buddhism's journey east. Around the stupa, fragments of Gandhara-style wood carvings and murals were scattered. This stupa has stood alone in the desert for nearly 2,000 years. Wind has eroded its surface, but has not shaken its foundation. It is Loulan's last guardian. Today, looking down at Lopnur from space, you see a giant ear, the famous ear of the Earth. Concentric rings of salt crust and dried sediment record a lake's long, slow death. The vast waters that once covered over 50,000 square kilometers were filled for the last time in 1921. In 1962, Lopnur dried up completely. The lake that had nurtured the Loulan civilization became a vast white salt flat wasteland. From prosperity to desolation, this process took nearly 2,000 years. And its cause was not nature, it was humanity. Loulan was not the only Silk Road city to vanish. Along the southern edge of the Taklamakan, Naya, Miran, Khotan, a string of once brilliant oasis cities all declined or perished in the same era. Like Loulan, they used the Kharosthi script, practiced Buddhism, and prospered from Silk Road trade. When the Darim River changed course and water supplies were cut, the desert swallowed them one by one. Loulan's sister cities witnessed a tragedy even greater than any single city's fall: the entire ecosystem of the Darim Basin, collapsing under the weight of human activity. In 2020, a restoration team worked for 170 days through scorching heat and sandstorms, carrying out the latest major preservation effort on Loulan Stupa and the three-room house ruins. Today, the Loulan site is a major cultural site under state protection. Ordinary visitors cannot enter freely. You must apply for permits a year in advance, obtain approval from both the Cultural Relics Bureau and military authorities, pay substantial fees, and join a professional expedition. Some say fewer people have visited Loulan than have climbed Mount Everest. The Loulan Museum houses over 5,700 artifacts, including the Sleeping Beauty herself. She now rests quietly in the Xinjiang Museum in Urumqi, her 3,800 years of silence telling the story of a lost civilization. The story of Loulan is a story of human ambition and the power of nature. 2,000 years ago, people built a miraculous city in the desert, where East met West. But in their pursuit of prosperity, they destroyed the very source of life that sustained them. When the last drop of water vanished, when the last person departed, the desert covered everything in silence. Yet the desert also remembers. It preserved the words on wooden slips, the scriptures on silk, the faith carved into the stupa, and a beauty's face unchanged for 3,800 years. These memories tell us, civilizations can rise overnight and perish within generations. And the story of water is always the story of life and death.
Just checking your tummy now. You're being very brave. We're almost finished.